People think mental toughness is about clenching your teeth, powering through, and pretending nothing scares you. That's the lie you've been sold. And if you keep believing it, you're going to break the moment life applies real pressure. I've seen grown men freeze because they thought toughness was intensity instead of clarity. I've watched people crumble because they confused loud confidence with actual control. Out in the teams, during a mission that started with one of the calmest sunrises of my life, I learned the truth. What looks peaceful can snap into chaos in a heartbeat, and if you don't have the right kind of mind, you will not survive that transition. Today, I'm going to show you the kind of mental toughness that keeps you alive, literally or metaphorically, when everything goes sideways. And I promise you, it's not what you think. Before we go any further, put your phone down. Turn it face down, turn off your notifications, and stop scrolling. If you can't focus for a few minutes, this video will not help you. Hell, real mental toughness will never be within reach if a vibration in your pocket can hijack your attention. This is your first test. If that already feels like too much discipline, click off the video. I don't sugarcoat, and I'm not here to hold your hand. I'm here to filter out the tourists. If you're still with me, good. Now we can actually work. I'm ex-Navy SEAL John. I spent over a decade in the world's most elite special operations force, running missions where failure wasn't an option, where hesitation could cost lives, and where mental toughness wasn't a motivational poster, it was survival. The same principles that kept me functional under fire are the ones missing from your daily life. You think discipline is about willpower? In the teams, discipline was about mission readiness. You think fear means weakness? For us, fear was data. You think toughness is about pushing harder? For us, it was about staying clear when everyone else started to shake. What I'm about to teach you is not self-help fluff. It's battlefield-tested performance psychology. And if you apply what I give you today consistently for 7 days, just 7, you will notice your mind sharpening, your stress response stabilizing, and your ability to stay calm under tension increasing in ways most people never experience. Here's what we're going to do. There are 3 steps to the SEAL version of real mental toughness: the internal scan, the ground truth, and the clarity command. I'll walk you through all 3, just like we used to brief before stepping off on a mission. I want you to leave a comment at the end that says, "Mission ready," so I know who's actually in the fight and who's just spectating. Now stay locked in because I'm about to take you back to that morning, standing in the dirt, gear on, weapons slung, watching the sun rise over a place that felt too quiet, too still. There was a small detail that didn't fit, a ripple in the silence that told me something was coming. And when it hit fast. Let me show you what happened next and why that moment changed everything about how I define mental toughness. The stillness didn't last long. It never does. One minute I was staring at that horizon, letting the quiet settle into my chest, and the next minute the radio on my vest crackled with a sharp burst of static that didn't belong. It wasn't even a full message, just a broken fragment, the kind that makes every muscle in your body tighten before your mind catches up. I felt my heartbeat thump against the inside of my plate carrier, slow at first, then faster, heavier, like my body already knew what my brain didn't. That's how it works out there. Your physiology whispers before the threat announces itself. I remember swallowing hard, my mouth suddenly dry, and feeling that familiar rush of doubt slide in. It doesn't matter how many missions you've been on, your brain still tries to negotiate with you. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's a bad signal. Maybe today's the day nothing goes wrong. That little voice always shows up. People imagine Navy SEALs as stone statues with no fear. That's nonsense. Fear is always there. It's the passenger you don't get to kick out of the truck. You just learn how to drive with it sitting next to you. My breathing changed without me thinking about it. Shorter, quicker, chest rising instead of belly. That's usually the first sign that the situation is shifting from calm to something else. And even though I tried to steady myself, a part of me felt that familiar tightening in the gut, the micro tremor in the hands, the awareness of how heavy every piece of gear suddenly felt. This is the moment most people break without even realizing it. The mind hits a wall. It decides the discomfort means danger, and danger means stop. But out there, you don't stop. You don't get to stop. People talk about the push past your limits mentality like it's heroic. For us, it wasn't heroism, it was necessity. I could feel myself hitting that early edge, that moment where your mind tells you you're done before the real challenge even starts. I didn't think of it as a rule back then. It was just a sensation I'd learned to recognize. The point where your body says enough, but the job says not even close. That gap between the two, that's where everything is decided. The radio crackled again, this time clearer. A voice cut through the static, low and urgent, no wasted words. I could hear movement behind me, my team shifting position, checking gear, reacting to the tone even before the content. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if the ground itself was bracing for impact. I scanned the ridgeline, then the valley, looking for anything out of place, and there it was, a flicker of motion in the far distance. Too fast to identify, too slow to dismiss. Whatever was coming, it wasn't friendly and it wasn't far. Then the command came through the radio, sharp and unmistakable. It was the kind of order that changes everything about the next 5 minutes of your life, the kind that doesn't allow hesitation, the kind that tells you the storm you felt earlier isn't just real, it's already here. I tightened my grip on my weapon, exhaled once, and stepped forward. That was the moment everything shifted. The moment the command hit my radio, everything inside me snapped into a different gear. The quiet sunrise, the doubt, the heaviness in my chest, gone. My senses sharpened so fast it felt like the world changed temperature. I lowered myself slightly, shifted my weight, and the dirt under my boots made this soft crunch that sounded way too loud for the situation. That's how you know it's real. Your body stops hearing the big things and starts noticing the microscopic ones. My breath felt warm against the inside of my balaclava. My heartbeat was suddenly the loudest thing in my head, pounding in a steady, controlled rhythm I'd trained into myself over years of chaos. Then I saw it. The threat wasn't a shape, it was a pattern, movement where there shouldn't be movement, shadows that didn't match the angle of the morning sun, glints of metal in places that should have been empty. It wasn't one enemy, it was several, positioned perfectly to hit us from multiple angles. We hadn't walked into a mission, we had walked into a setup, a compromised route, an ambush. Dust lifted in tiny spirals near the ridge as the wind shifted, and each swirl carried vibrations, soft, subtle, the telltale signature of feet repositioning, weapons adjusting, bodies readying themselves to strike. I could practically taste the tension in the air, this metallic dryness that always shows up right before bullets start flying. My brain began assembling the picture faster than I could consciously keep up. Distance, elevation, likely weapon types, number of bodies, escape routes, cover positions, exposure points. My team behind me didn't see what I saw yet. That was the irony. My angle gave me a slightly earlier glimpse of the danger. They were still scanning, still catching up, still seconds behind the moment that was about to decide everything. For a split second, I had knowledge they didn't, and that's one of the loneliest feelings in combat, when you know what's coming and they're still in the calm before impact. My breath slowed intentionally. I forced it down from my chest into my diaphragm, grounding myself, shrinking the panic, widening the clarity. Mental toughness in that moment wasn't about being fearless. It was about not letting fear steal the milliseconds I needed to think. I wasn't trying to be brave. I was trying to stay alive and keep my team alive. Strategic focus kicked in like muscle memory. I traced the ridgeline, identified the lead shooter by spotting the slight shimmer of a scope adjusting. That's always the tell. Scope first, trigger second. My body leaned forward, knees bent, shoulders relaxed, weapon coming up with controlled aggression, not panic. The angle was tight, too tight. If I fired first, I'd blow our element of surprise but save us from getting hit. If I waited for confirmation from the others, we risked someone taking a round before we reacted. My finger rested on the trigger guard, not inside it, half a breath away from commitment. My radio crackled again, low, almost a whisper, one of my guys asking if anyone else saw movement. They didn't know how close we were. They didn't see the enemy's barrel lowering toward us. I had a choice. Fire now and reveal our position, or hold and pray for another few seconds of clarity that might not come. It wasn't a tactical question, it was a survival question. The kind where hesitation kills and action can save or doom you in the same heartbeat. The enemy's weapon tilted a fraction of an inch downward. I exhaled, and in that sliver of a second, I made my decision. The moment I pulled the trigger, the world detonated into chaos. The shot cracked through the morning air like a lightning strike, and instantly the ridge erupted with muzzle flashes. Dirt exploded around us, dust filled my lungs, and the peaceful sunrise transformed into a battlefield louder than my own thoughts. My team scrambled into position, shouting over each other, over the gunfire, over the radio traffic that suddenly flooded our headsets. Half the messages were cut off mid-sentence, scrambled by interference or sheer panic on the other end. Confusion is a weapon, and the enemy knows how to use it. That first minute felt like 10. Everything collapses into noise, pressure, and instinct. This is the moment where most people mentally fall apart. When the plan disintegrates and the world stops following the rules, the mind panics, searching for certainty where there is none. Even for me, even after years of training, my first instinct was fear. Raw, primal, a tightening at the center of my chest that told me to pull back, get small, get safe. At the same time, there was a competing voice in my head, the disciplined one, the version of me that Bud S. had built piece by piece. That voice said, slow down, think, control what you can, kill what you must, ignore everything else. In moments like this, I fall back on something we used to call triage thinking. You don't solve everything, you solve the right thing first. I scanned again, left, right, up the ridge, back to the valley. categorizing threats the way a medic categorizes casualties. Who's shooting? Who's moving? Who's adjusting their aim? Who's relocating? In chaos, you don't try to win all at once. You prioritize and eliminate, even as bullets tore into the dirt inches from my face, even as the radio spit conflicting orders at us. I forced myself to breathe, slow and deep, turning panic into data. That's discipline over emotion. Emotion wants to scream. Discipline whispers, focus. But I'd be lying if I said it was easy. With every new burst of gunfire, a small part of me wondered if we were in over our heads. Doubt crept in like smoke under a door. You don't see it at first, but suddenly the room is full of it. Was the mission compromised from the start? Did someone leak our route? Were we walking into something designed to swallow us whole? Those questions clawed at me even as I returned fire, even as I yelled commands to the guys on my left, even as I shifted positions to avoid being pinned. Fear and clarity wrestled inside of me in real time. My heartbeat was a war drum, but my mind was trying to stay cold, calculating. That's the real fight. The internal battle where 99% of people break long before the enemy touches them. They get overwhelmed by the weight of everything. But mental toughness isn't about suppressing fear. It's about shrinking the universe down to the square foot in front of you. One breath, one movement, one decision, over and over. That's what I need you to understand. When life hits its peak chaos and everything collapses, your job is to identify the one thing that matters and commit to it completely. So I did exactly that. I locked onto a flank position we had to take or we'd be surrounded. I barked instructions, my voice low and sharp, more deliberate than loud. My guys listened, not because I was fearless, but because I was focused. That's the skill I want you to take from this. Controlled aggression, not emotional reaction, not blind intensity, but deliberate, targeted action under pressure. It's what keeps you alive. It's what keeps you from freezing. It's what you train for. But then something shifted inside me, a sudden, unexpected jolt, not physical, mental, like I hit an invisible wall. My thoughts stalled, my body hesitated for half a second, and in that half second, everything felt like it could fall apart. It was the psychological barrier every operator knows, the point where your brain says, you're done, you're out, you've reached your limit. The worst part, a part of me believed it. And right there, in the middle of the firefight, with bullets slicing the air and my team depending on me, I had to decide whether that voice was going to win or whether I could push beyond it. When I hit that psychological wall, it felt like slamming into a concrete barrier inside my own skull. Everything in me wanted to shut down, to lean back, to wait for clarity, to hope someone else would take the lead for a second. That's the trap. That's the moment where the mind lies to you, telling you you've hit your limit when in reality you're barely scratching the surface. I could feel the weight of exhaustion press against my ribs, feel the tremor in my hands from adrenaline burning too fast. My vision tightened at the edges, the way it does when your brain is preparing to quit. And for a heartbeat, I almost listened to that voice telling me to stop. But then something deeper kicked in. It wasn't motivation and it wasn't courage. It was the space beyond the 40% mark, the place where your mind thinks you're done, but your body has far more to give. Most people never reach it. They hit discomfort and assume it's the end. For us in the teams, that's where the real work begins. I forced myself to breathe slower, deeper, until the shaking steadied. I reminded myself of the simplest truth. Quitting is always a choice, one you don't make out here. I scanned the terrain again, and that's when I noticed it. The enemy was shifting positions along the left flank, trying to box us in. If they succeeded, we'd have no angles, no movement, no chance. My team was pinned behind rocks and half-buried ruins, firing back but losing ground. The radio chatter was a mess, calls overlapping, warnings drowned out by gunfire. No one was keeping track of the left side. No one saw what I saw, and if I didn't act, it would be over in a matter of minutes. This was the moment. I could stay in cover, do the safe thing, the logical thing, the thing fear wanted, or I could move, fast, aggressive, and completely exposed to cut off their flank. Every instinct screamed at me not to do it. Every inch of my training told me the risk was massive. But leadership doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in these ugly, terrifying seconds where someone has to be first. I shifted my weight forward, felt the gravel slide under my knee, and counted down internally from 3. My chest tightened. My pulse thudded against my gear. I knew the difference between fake toughness, the loud, showy bravado people put on, and the quiet, deliberate mindset I needed right now. Real toughness isn't about looking fearless. It's about acting with clarity even when fear is choking your throat. So I moved. I sprinted out from cover, keeping low, feeling bullets snap the air inches from my shoulder. Dust exploded around my boots with every impact. I could hear my team shouting my name, telling me to fall back, but their voices were drowned under the roar in my ears. My weapon was tight against my shoulder, my breath sharp, my thoughts cutting through the chaos like a sharpened edge. I reached the flank position, dropped to a knee, and unleashed controlled fire. Short bursts, precise, not panicked. The enemy didn't expect it. Their line buckled, their advance stalled. For a moment, we had a chance. But I was exposed, isolated, alone on that side of the battlefield, with no cover except a few inches of broken stone. I yelled for my team to reposition, to push forward while the flank was disrupted. I could feel my legs shaking, hear the crack of rounds hitting dangerously close. I didn't know if the maneuver would hold. I didn't know if my team could reach me in time. I didn't even know if I'd make it another 30 seconds. What I did know was this, that one choice, the decision to move when everything told me not to, was the difference between collapse and survival. And as the enemy regrouped faster than I expected, as they adjusted their aim directly toward me, I realized the next few seconds would decide everything, whether the decision I made was brilliant or fatal. When the firefight finally died, the world went quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. It was the same kind of quiet I remembered from the start of the mission. Still, heavy, almost too peaceful. Except this time, the silence wasn't hiding a storm. It was what came after one. My breath was ragged against the inside of my mask, and the dust hung in the air like a thin fog, slowly settling onto shattered rocks and empty shell casings. I could hear my heartbeat again, steadying itself, no longer racing with the frantic rhythm of survival. For a moment, it felt like the earth was holding its breath with me. My team regrouped, checking each other, checking gear, checking the ground we'd just fought for. No one spoke. No one needed to. We were alive, but that survival came with a kind of stillness only people who've been close to the edge understand. I sat down on a broken slab of stone, letting the adrenaline drain out of my muscles. That's when the weight of the whole fight hit me. Not the physical kind, but the mental kind. The kind that settles behind your ribs and forces you to think about what just happened. People romanticize moments like these. They imagine a feeling of invincibility, like surviving chaos turns you into some kind of untouchable warrior. But that's not how it works. Real mental toughness isn't something you feel as a victory. It's something you recognize as responsibility. It's the voice in your head whispering, "You held the line this time. Now be ready for the next one." That's the truth I want you to take from all this. Mental toughness isn't about being fearless or pretending nothing gets to you. It's about clarity in the middle of fear. It's about discipline when your mind is breaking. It's about making the right decision when every instinct tells you to choose the easy one. If you want a principle you can use right now, it's this. Simplify the moment. When everything around you feels overwhelming, reduce the world to the next breath, the next step, the next action. Shrink the chaos until it becomes something you can influence. That's what I did in that fight. That's what kept us alive. I looked out at the horizon again, just like I had that morning, but now I saw it differently. The same sun that rose in peace had witnessed every second of the battle, and now it was shining on the aftermath, on the dust, the debris, the scars left behind. That's the rhythm of this world: calm, chaos, silence again. And here's the part you need to hear. That wasn't the only time I had to reach beyond what I thought my limits were, not even close. What happened that day wasn't the hardest lesson I ever learned out there. It was just the first time I understood what real mental toughness actually looks like. There's another story I need to tell you, one that tested me in a way even this fight didn't. Another moment where the stakes were higher, the pressure heavier, and the consequences far more personal. If you think this mission revealed the truth, wait until you hear what came next.